Screenless. The TV drama is imagined. The work and the guests are real. Making a soundtrack. Opening scene and action. Hi, Dan. Dan? You there, Dan?
Hey, yes, I'm here.
What are you doing?
I'm conducting.
Why are you conducting?
Well, we've got a guest coming up later that does a bit of it. I
Right.
thought I'd have a go.
You know, the listeners can't see you. It's audio.
Oh, it is, isn't it? I forgot.
That's a nice idea, though, Dan.
Shall I carry on?
No, that's all right. Well, maybe later. Maybe after the podcast.
Okay.
Okay. So who is going to be joining us today?
It is the lovely Jeremy Holland-Smith.
Jeremy Holland-Smith. Okay.
Yes.
Conductor, composer, arranger. He's done it all.
You name it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great. So Jeremy will be coming up shortly. Before that, though, we have Cue the Music, where I tackled track 9. The
Track 9.
first part of it, which is the strings. So, actually, we could just dive into that, couldn't we?
Okay, let's cue the music.
Yay! Cue the music. So,
You sent me something.
I did send you something. I sent you
Yes.
some, mainly strings, plus a couple of other things, but
Yes.
I wanted to avoid all of the extra instrumentation and concentrate on the strings, because I think this track needed to be more up-tempo, more urgent, more frenetic, and I think concentrating on those themes, using the little string runs, would be a really good place to start.
Yes, I love what you've done, incorporating all the different themes.
Thank you.
Yeah, really like it. Really, really like it. I love the new theme that came out of track 7 and your use of that in there. And I think my only criticism is that it needs to be brought into the sound world that we've developed.
Yes.
Other than
Very
that,
much so.
and that will happen with adding all the extra bits to it, I'm sure. So other than that, I mean, I love the intricacy of it. I love how frenetic it is, how pacey it is. Yeah, it really does feel like some sort of action scene.
Yeah, we discussed last time having a really long, powerful note at the start. So I started with that. And then out of that, I used the new theme that you came up with in track 8 and made that into a little kind of motif on the violins. And took it from there, kind of reintroduced your track 8 theme again in the bass, added some piano to kind of give it the same feel. I've added some horns, the Cine Brass 6 legato horns patch. So since then I've gone back and looked through how we can kind of albumify it, I suppose. So I made some notes about, for instance, the Cat synth bass, which is basically in everywhere. It's our R2D2 of the album.
It is.
I thought maybe you can either double it to the double basses, or take out the double basses and just have the cat bass.
The cat synth.
I think that's just a bit of an A/B test, isn't it? See what sounds better.
Yeah.
And then there are other things. There are certain, like the drums in the intro.
Track 1. Yeah. That they could add a bit of weight and a bit of pace to it as well.
Yeah.
Don't need to be too much.
I added a snare on the reference track, but I don't think the snare is... It just made it sound too orchestral.
Yeah, agreed.
So, maybe replacing with that. Let me just look up the rest of the notes. Obviously, the piano comes back into the bass.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that piano riser that's in track 1 as well, that goes into that original... that original ostinato that you have.
Yeah.
What else? There was a synthy ostinato in track 6, which could work with a faster pace.
Isn't that just the main ostinato? But
no,
on a synth.
Maybe. I'm not sure. I've got the time reference anyway.
Cool.
Those were the main ones.
Yeah.
I had. And when I was there at your house, you played. What was it in? Was it in track 7? There was a gong
Oh, yes, the gong,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that could work with the opening note. I
Oh,
think.
definitely. Yeah. It's a really old sample, but it's wonderful. It's really close mic'd, low hit gong, really soft, but it just goes on forever.
Yeah.
It's fab.
But I don't think it will take a huge amount to make it sound like the album.
To bring it back into the album. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a case of balancing the strings with other things.
Yeah. Yeah, and it might be that some of the stuff that the strings are doing either gets doubled with or moves onto something else.
Absolutely. And what you've done in other tracks is you've complemented what's going on with something else, some weird delay going on that kind of runs alongside something and then goes away.
Yep.
Things like that. So, yes, that's what I've done so far.
I think it's great. And I think it, like you say, it won't take much to bring it into the sound world of the album.
So this will be the first, this bit, and obviously we can't comment on the next bit, the more completed track, I suppose, until you've had a tinker with those things. So maybe we'll leave that till next time.
Oh, a cliffhanger.
Lovely bloke.
Yeah, he's a lovely bloke.
Aye.
Open the door, shut the window. No, get over.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I suppose it's time to go behind the scenes.
BTS.
Jeremy Holland-Smith is a composer, orchestral arranger and conductor who has amassed an extensive range of work in film, television, ballet, concert hall and theatre. As a television and film composer, Jeremy's most recent credits include composing the score for the feature film The Passing, which won 3 2016 BAFTA Cymru Awards, and for which Jeremy won the 2017 Music and Sound Award for Best Original Feature Film Score, scoring the highly acclaimed BBC documentaries I Shot My Parents and North Korea Murder in the Family, and the score for the return of the BBC series The League of Gentlemen. Jeremy was also the music consultant for the recent BBC adaptation of Les Miserables. As an orchestrator and conductor, recent work with composer Paul Englishby includes Queens of Mystery, The Musketeers, Series 2 and 3, Witness for the Prosecution, Decline and Fall, A Royal Night Out, and his work with Murray Gold, including The Musketeers Series 1, Life Story, and Doctor Who. Jeremy Holland-Smith, welcome to the Making a Soundtrack podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, Jeremy, I'd like to start with Les Miserables, if I may. That was quite recent on the BBC. What was involved with being a music consultant? And which departments and people on the production did you work closest with?
So they needed someone, I think they called it an historical music consultant. Sounds very grand, doesn't it? But it just meant that someone needed to, look at a lot of books and work out what music existed between, I think it was 1815 and 1825. So that's when the revolution was. I hope I've got that right, because that's a bit embarrassing if I haven't. So it was a very specific kind of job to sort of do and research. And the producer phoned my agent and just said that, we need someone who can arrange, someone who knows a bit about that stuff. So it's kind of, I had to kind of source some French choral music around that time. And sort of various kind of dances that would happen in a Paris inn and in a kind of French brothel. So that was quite interesting. And so, had lots of interactions with the producers at Lookout Point, and then basically kind of drew up a kind of Bible that any choices that were made from that Bible. So whether it's kind of music at fairs, sacred music, wedding music, music in inns, music or songs that the revolutionaries would sing as kind of marching songs, things like what drummers would play, etc., etc. So they were very conscious that it had to be historically correct, and sometimes we couldn't find the music, so that would mean that I'd have to kind of write something or arrange something or kind of do something in kind of sound alike sort of thing. So that was a bit of to and fro between John Murphy and I. And then also the other aspect was to teach the songs to the actors. So people like Josh O'Connor, had to teach Ellie Bamber the piano. So John would kind of write something, but then, I'd have to adapt John's piano piece so that Ellie could play it and comfortably play it on set. So yeah, that was kind of it. And then, back and forth to Brussels, kind of being on set, freezing my off at 4 a.m. And then just sort of oddly finding myself in, North Face shop, just buying more and more things to keep me warm. So yeah, it's not very glamorous. You come back with a sort of pot belly because all you've really eaten is this kind of heavy beef bourguignon for lunch, and then
you went method on the 18th century
French. Well, it's just, you're doing that on set catering, which is like you're just eating like a lot of food all the time. It's funny being on film sets because the sort of director would say, right, now we're going to do that, and literally, you'd be standing around for an hour and a half while they're kind of getting ready to do the next shot. No wonder people sort of smoke and do that, because that's all there is to do, really.
I was just thinking I could get to Bristol in that time.
Yeah. Can you imagine doing an orchestral session and said, right, we're going to do the next take, and it took 5 minutes to get the music up and get a Pro Tour session? I mean, you'd die in your arse, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
We had Simon Whiteside on recently, and he was talking about on-set music for things like Downton, and there was a lot of sitting around, and actually a lot of sitting around for the on-set musicians as well, doing like 20 minutes in the 2-day shoot kind of thing.
Yeah, well, we had this scene, I think it was in episode 1, and it took 3 nights to film, and we had a hurdy-gurdy player, a hard anger fiddle player, a kind of wooden flute, accordion, double bass violin, and by 5 o'clock in the morning, the hurdy-gurdy had kind of pretty much kind of frozen, no longer being able to turn the wheel. It was interesting. It was an interesting kind of project to be on. John Murphy's just loveliest of lovely humans. So it was good, and it was a really nice team. So yeah, it was good.
Going back to the start, Jeremy, you were head chorister at St Paul's Cathedral. Do you think that helped prepare you for your career? And when did you decide the music was the career for you?
I think kind of early on, really. From the age of 8, you're singing every day, singing services every day, and singing amazing music in an amazing space. I think it's difficult to get rid of the music bug. I think there's still quite a few people who are still in the kind of music industry. There's a singer who sings in Tenebrae, Jeremy Budd, Henry Jackman was there. You're singing every day. You're doing it to such a high level, although you're not really aware of it at the time. You're just at school, you're just a young kid. I mean, I've got kids that age now, but I can't imagine sending them away to Bordeaux and live next door to St Paul's Cathedral. But there you go. That's a separate issue. That's therapy. That's not projects. But yeah, so I thought that I was gonna maybe be a choral conductor, and I sort of did all that kind of organ stuff, and thought that I was going to find myself in an organ loft somewhere, and then I probably saw the light and saw that there was another way, or another kind of, there's other ways to kind of do music. And one of the biggest kind of turning points was when I started doing some stuff for the Royal Shakespeare Company, and I kind of never really knew that Royal Shakespeare Company had live musicians, and they had a new score every time they did a new Shakespeare play. It just didn't occur to me. So I then started kind of doing a lot of musical direction for them, started then doing some writing, and I thought, this is great. It feels like you're part of something that is less of a forgotten thing, which maybe oddly, now the age that I'm at, I'm actually kind of missing a purpose. Talking about religion, I think I'm definitely lacking a spirituality, something that is. It was always a kind of go-to kind of thing. Is what you grew up with, singing the evensong every night, and then suddenly it's kind of all gone. You're taking a different turn.
You said about being so young. I mean, I've got kids that age as well, and I think when you are, you don't think about things like that when you're that age. Of course you don't. You're far too busy messing about and making trouble. So why would you be thinking about anything as deep as that? And I think when you're put in that situation, you just kind of get on with it.
Yeah, I mean, we sort of did every normal thing that, my kids do at school. They come out of the lessons and then they go into the yard, by the school and play football, and and then you get scratches all over you, get all this kind of stuff, and then you go and play football matches against other people. But then the bell goes, you go back into the classroom, and the bell goes again, and then you go up across the courtyard to the cathedral, start rehearsing, singing a song, come back for tea, do your homework, go to bed. And you just literally don't think anything of it, and then the next day there's like the royal family, in the front row of congregation. Then you're at Abbey Road, doing a film score for James Horner, or, you just do not think anything of it.
Yeah. Wow.
And you're kind of broadcasting, you're doing BBC broadcasts, you're doing, CDs pretty much every term.
Did you have a favourite project that you were engaged with? You mentioned James Horner score and CDs and things.
I specifically remember going and doing 5 days of recording at Abbey Road. Maybe I wasn't aware that it was Abbey Road then, but we were doing the score for The Land Before Time. Have you ever heard that?
Oh, no, I don't think I have.
It rings a bell,
amazing.
that.
It's got the most amazing opening. It's got this soaring kind of horn tune, and James Thatcher, I think, is playing principal horn, and it's just incredible. But I can just remember stood in amongst the LSO, kind of 5 days at Abbey Road, kind of recording the score, and the film's going on behind you. In the break you're going to get his autograph, and and then doing Paul McCartney's frog chorus and stuff like that. I mean, it's
wow,
it's mental. It's mental. Going on a USA tour, and it was like 21 states in 18 days or something, or was it the other way? It can't be that. 18 states in 21 days. And then I think we had 2 days off. One was in New York and one was in, I don't know, Denver or something. Because I remember falling for one of the girls that I was living with. Not living with, staying with, kind of. So, yes.
You're like a rock star as a kid.
I'm not saying yes, but I'm just
not saying no either.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I'm guessing, if you're in what it must be like to be in a sort of football academy at that age.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. You as Dan says, if you're in a football academy, you're not really aware of it. You're not really, or maybe you are. Are you aware that you're playing Chelsea one Saturday and then you're playing? I don't know.
I think you would be, but if you're around your mates, it's just part of life, then you take it in your stride, I suppose, don't you?
Yeah, a bit more matter of fact as a kid, I think. You don't sort of, it might be a big thing, but you just do it and then get on with the next thing, because that's what they do. They just focus on what's next.
So, Jeremy, you are a very well-respected conductor and arranger, and have worked on a lot of big productions with some of the world's finest orchestras. How do you balance arranging, conducting and composing? And do you have a preference?
That's very kind of you to say. I disagree, but I really like. I do really like conducting. I haven't done that much this year because just of the nature of like stuff. I did think actually last couple of weeks ago that I was sort of missing that. Sorry, what was the question again?
Do you have a preference between arranging, conducting, composing? Is it hard to kind of switch brains, or do you find they complement each other, or how do you think of it?
Sure, yeah. I mean, without a doubt, all three complement each other and they all kind of feed in, which is brilliant. So I just finished something orchestrating and arranging a big piece for the BBC Ulster Orchestra, and it was really interesting having a conversation with the composer for that, because I was, saying to him that, the thing about kind of TV music is that, and this was, a kind of suite from a TV score. I was trying to kind of say, and I hope it didn't come across in a patronizing way. I don't think he took it as that, and subsequently he's thanked me for saying it. But I was kind of stressing that you can't kind of pull TV music out of Logic or Pro Tools or whatever and stick that onto a score and it translate into a concert hall. It just really doesn't work. And I think without, there's been certain times, when you look at maybe some of the proms, can I say that? That, they're obviously enticing kind of a younger audience and, getting people into thing. And it's very clear when you then hear that there hasn't been much work getting the kind of TV score, the movie score onto a concert platform. And it's almost like you need to kind of rethink the music again and reorchestrate it, possibly even rearrange it, possibly even rewrite it. Because as we all know, you move very quickly in TV. You're lucky if you've got kind of, enough budget for players. And those scores just they're just not gonna work. And you can't put a load of balloons in front of a, top orchestra and want them to kind of play it really well. And if you give the double basses 36 bars of a bottom D, they're literally going to lose the will to live.
Yeah.
So, and that's where, perhaps the kind of conducting kind of feeds in, and the composition feeds into the arranging. It all just kind of feeds in, I think. And having kind of conducted and stuff at the proms, it's like you kind of know about the kind of clicking to picture, about the space, about kind of how to fill the space, orchestration wise. So yes, it does really help. And I like not, the great thing about doing the arranging and orchestrating is you sort of not the person that has to necessarily come up with the ideas, which is quite liberating. You can keep your Dropbox open and you see it all come in, and you kind of go, okay, well, that's my day tomorrow. I've got to get 6 minutes done or 7 minutes done, because otherwise I'm not going to meet the deadline. And I quite like that.
Yeah.
And as the composing thing, sometimes you can just be literally just dying on your ass, kind of, because it's just you. And I can understand why people are now sort of, teaming up with each other to kind of deliver a project, because, being on your own day in, day out, it's tough.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
One of the challenges that Dan and I have had is we're writing an album that doesn't have the context of picture. So we've actually got the opposite problem of don't put too much in, because, it's designed to be a soundtrack to a drama. So we've found we've got to really hold back and, keep that D going.
Yeah, well, especially when my style of composition is what I call subtractive synthesis, where I throw absolutely everything. It's the Jeff Lynne production technique, and then start taking bits out to see what works. So yeah, that has been very challenging.
So have you finished the album?
No, not quite.
We're on track 9 at the moment.
Out of 10.
Out of 10, and we're yet to tackle the theme tune. So we're going to get together for that in January, aren't we?
Yeah.
So what made you start that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Why did we do this?
Yeah. Gareth approached me with the idea of starting the podcast. Originally, it was going to be a YouTube thing. And we thought, let's look into this. And I've done a bit of YouTube, and I realised how much work it was. And I think we then decided, actually, do you know what? Let's definitely keep it just a podcast. But the idea was always to write music at the same time, so that we, even if the podcast was an absolute catastrophe, we would have an album at the end of it that we could then put into a library or something. So it wouldn't be a total waste of time.
And really, the basic idea was to make an album publicly. So
yeah,
it's reflecting a collaboration and all the challenges you face with, not working in the same place and, having shared files, and how do you give each other notes and all that stuff. And then also, on top of that, having guests on who've worked in the industry, because we thought originally we should have a script writer on, because we don't have a point of context. We don't have the picture coming in that we can review and work from there. So how do we know when a plot should reach a certain point? Or, so that's how it started. And then Dan said, well, if we're speaking to a script writer, why don't we speak to as many people as we possibly can?
Yeah.
And it's made it really interesting.
So it does have a narrative arc.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. That's a really good idea.
Yeah. Well, we'll see at the end. Yeah. It's we found the sound. It took a few tracks for us to find the sound.
I mean, it's interesting because I have spent most of the year developing. I just suddenly realised that I've had to sign this NDA, so I can't. Anyway.
Damn those NDAs.
But at the latter half of the year, I was working with someone else and on this one song, and it was just really, really fruitful. And I genuinely don't believe the song would probably be as good as it is now if I'd done it on my own, because I think it just needed some sort of kind of, to and fro. So do you to and fro things all the time?
Yeah.
Yes.
And that this is exactly what's happened with the album. I don't think I would have written the stuff that is on the album unless I'd collaborated with Gareth.
Yeah.
So
vice versa. Yes, and partly why I wanted to collaborate in the first place is I know what I sound like. I could have done it on my own, but I didn't want to. I wanted to go down an unknown path where I had no idea what it was going to sound like at the end. And honestly, I couldn't have predicted it. So
No.
I'm really pleased. That's a big tick in my criteria for doing it.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about, this project, there was going to be certain songs that I know that they're sort of more kind of, maybe kind of akin to myself, but I also know that there's going to be others where this particular person is going to bring a whole lot more to the table than, I'm not a drummer, I'm not a guitarist. This guy, he's done loads of kind of hit records and kind of, so
it's not Bruno Mars, is it?
And he's got, I don't know, just a more understanding of, producing, songwriting.
Dan, is your mind going now? It's like tick tock tick. Will I am. It's Will I am.
No. But it's, it's still very cottage. It's still very cottage.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's quite a lonely kind of environment, isn't it? Kind of, sat there for kind of 6 weeks on a really tight deadline.
Yeah, very much so.
It's tough.
Yes.
It's really tough. So, I think that kind of feeds into those three aspects: arranging, conducting, and composing. I think, I really like conducting because I see a lot of, I would describe as friends, and, I haven't seen enough of them, this year. And I think arranging and orchestrating makes you part of a team, which is really nice. So you might be part of a, when we were doing Musketeers, it was, we had music editor Lewis, Paul was composer, Catherine Cleese was a fixer, and all this kind of stuff, and you just felt like part of the team. So you'd all go out, and bless him, Steve Price. But we'd all go out to Prague, have a brilliant 2 days, and then get proper mashed in the evening, and then feel really rough next day and come back together, and then sort of do it all over again, 4 weeks later. And it was kind of nice, but those budgets don't really, I don't know, they really exist anymore.
No.
I think probably, dare I say it, Musketeers for certain BBC was probably maybe one of the last kind of big budget things. I mean, Michael Price has probably still got something similar, but there's kind of not many.
Yeah, I think they are far and few between now.
Certainly sounded big, didn't it? Musketeers. Nice series, that.
Yeah, and it was kind of, Paul wanted to do it kind of old school. So we went out to Prague, and then we also then did lots of smaller sessions in the Angel, and it kind of brings up that other question as well, is that what would you rather have? Can I say this? What would you rather have? 26 London musicians at Angel, or would you have 60 musicians at Prague?
Unfortunately, it all comes down to money.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean, and this is the difficulty when you start going to another country, because you hope that those players are getting paid as well as the players that are getting paid over here. It just so happens that our economy is at a different state and we're more expensive.
It's massively popular in library at the moment, isn't it, to record orchestras abroad?
Yeah, I mean, someone was asking me to go over in February, not to Prague, but somewhere else. And so it's, and it was, I think it's Universal. They're out there for a whole week. And you just think, wow. But also, I mean, the other thing is the question about the 22 players at Angel or 60 in Prague or Bratislava or wherever it is that I think I'd rather go for the 26 players at Angel.
Yeah.
Because I think it sounds as good and not, sorry, it's not good. What I mean is, of course, it's brilliant. Of course, it's amazing, but it sounds just as big.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it's orchestrated well enough, it will sound good enough. Plus, the other thing is that, bigger is not always better. When you're doing a drama or something, you don't want, if you listen to Downton, I mean, it's a masterclass in simplicity what he's done on for that score. And people would equate, I think, Downton to a very high quality product, and it's they're not massive sections that they use.
No, it's not. And also, I think the mixing is very interesting as well, because it's, and this is a compliment, but it's very bright, and it must have been consciously kind of done like that. Would you agree, Dan?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's definitely. I mean, there's a lovely top end to it. I would like to talk to the engineer to find out exactly whether that was, like as you say, a conscious effort or not.
Yeah, because it seems to just sort of penetrate everything, doesn't it? And it never.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah. So, this is a question we ask all our guests. What advice would you give to your younger self or to someone starting in the industry?
I think at this stage in my life, I would definitely try and say to myself, you need to enjoy it a bit more. I think I would definitely say, try not to worry so much. We are kind of a delicate breed, and sometimes it's sort of quite kind of cutthroat, isn't it? And it's quite hard to kind of push through the noise. I think this is quite a kind of, I don't know about you guys, but it feels quite a kind of turning time, and it's difficult to know how to sort of manage that, and whether you just kind of hold on to all the experience that you do have and all the experience you can give to projects or work or people. So I would definitely say try and enjoy it more. But the other thing as well is, being assistant to Joby Tolbert probably was, the best kind of experience that I've had, certainly specifically in specific, parts of this industry. And I can remember being proper roasted, in the early stages. I mean, proper. I remember we were doing a advert in Strong Room, I think, and I'd prepared all the session in Logic, because we were recording in Logic, and all the musicians had turned up, and I think Tom Bailey was recording it, but the studio only had Logic 8, and I'd prepared the session on Logic 7, and the two weren't compatible at the time. Oh. So we had to get a computer biked across London, and Joby just literally just threw me some manuscript paper and just said, go and photocopy that. And then 2.5 hours later, I came back with my tail in between my legs, holding a coffee, saying, really sorry. But it's those kind of things you just, you learn instantly, and then suddenly you kind of, your preparation just kind of transforms itself, and you just think, I never want to be in that position ever again.
Yeah.
It's that kind of double checking, because you can't afford, to have mistakes.
Nobody's perfect, and everybody makes those mistakes, and it's when you make them, it's whether you learn from them or not.
Yes, how you react.
But I can remember as a sort of younger self, sort of they'd be like, "Oh, who's done that?" And you're sort of like, "Well, I haven't done that." But now I think I'd say, "Oh, I'm really sorry, that was me."
Yeah.
It's really important as well. Even when kind of directors kind of saying, "Oh, can we try that?" It's, well, I'm not really that type of guy to do that. What you're wanting there, but I see what you mean. But maybe we could do something that I know that I'd be able to do well, and maybe we could try that. So if someone said, "Can you do a drum and bass track?" I'd like, But interestingly, I wrote an orchestral piece as an introduction to an orchestra for kids. But I kind of tapped in a bit of kind of drum and bass because I sort of knew how to kind of do it orchestrally, but I wouldn't know how to produce a drum and bass track.
Yeah.
I don't actually know what my point was then, but I think it's try and also just try and hold on to your sort of identity, your sound, your thing that you sort of do.
I definitely think finding that musical identity. It's and you won't have it to start with. There'll be bits of it there, but not all of it. And it is about having something that means that you don't sound like somebody else. You might want to sound like someone else, because I think we've all had bits where we, desperately. I went through a very big John Powell phase where everything had to sound like John Powell, which is probably one of the reasons why I've got the kitchen sink production mentality, because his stuff is just crazy in that sense. I'm not John Powell, and I'm never going to be John Powell, but I've taken elements from that and they've stuck, and so there are elements of some of the things that he does.
Collaborating like this, Dan, is actually quite a good analogy, isn't it? Because we had to find our sound, not as individuals but as a partnership, and we knew when that happened, didn't we? We went, this is the sound for this album.
Yeah, I mean, sort of going back to that question again, the composing, arranging, or conducting, again, these sort of things kind of feed in, because, all the orchestration that I've done for Joby, all the orchestration that I've done for Paul and Murray and all this, it all kind of feeds into your composing in some way. You're not necessarily aware of it, but you're ingesting this music, and also you're ingesting it on a piece of paper as well, which is a very, you're not doing it orally, you're kind of moving their dots about so that you can, do you know what I mean? And it's a very different way of kind of intaking that information.
Great. Well, Jeremy Holland-Smith, thank you ever so much for joining us and sharing your experiences, and good luck with your next secret NDA project.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for asking me. It's been a pleasure and nice to see you both.
So notes. I thought rather than reading out other people's notes this week, I would read out one of our posts, because something very exciting is happening on Sunday.
Ooh.
Our guest, Andrea Gibb, one of our early guests, who is a scriptwriter.
Yeah.
She was talking about a new drama, Elizabeth is Missing, which is the first drama Glenda Jackson has acted in for 25 years, something like that. So I put out a post saying we're excited to see this next Sunday, the 8th of December, which is this coming Sunday.
It is.
With scripts from our marvellous guest, Andrea Gibb, and adapted from the book by E.C. Healy, and a score by Dominic Scherer. So let's see what that's like. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah,
so,
me too. Should be good.
Best of luck to everyone involved in that production. It's very exciting.
Yeah.
Is that a wrap?
I believe that's a wrap. Chicken and bacon with some avocado if you're a millennial.
That's a wrap.
How do you find us? Makingasoundtrack.com will tell you all you need to know. Links to the podcast, social media links, and there's information about us too.
If you are enjoying the podcast, it would make our day if you could give us a positive rating or review. And if you enjoyed this episode, hit that share button and recommend it to someone else. Thanks very much. Goodbye.
Bye. Open the door, shut the window. No, get over.